Good afternoon and welcome. I want to welcome you to this week's reiteration of Education Connection. Today we have joining us a teacher from Francis Patton and a member of the Francis Patton Transformation Team, Alondra Swan. Hello, Miss Swan. Teacher from Clearwater Middle School and a member of the Francis Patton Transformation Team, Crystal Richardson. And
Hi, everyone.
representing the Education Reform Unit, Karen Capel. The team we have today is part of the team that is focusing on a vibrant 21st century parish primary curriculum with an initial focus on the P1s and P7s. This will give our young people the knowledge, skills, and values that they need to shape and succeed in Bermuda's future. The parish primary school curriculum will connect to the other phases of schooling. It will build on each child's early learning experiences, responding to their individual learning needs. A significant part of the curriculum and learning experience development will be to incorporate work done to date by design teams. This includes all primary age students having consistent exposures, explorations, and experiences, the three E's, in relation to the signature programs and the P7 and P8 participation in the signature taster program. This is designed to help students confidently select which signature program to register for. Today, I am pleased to be joined by the members of the Francis Patton Transformation Team who are involved in the development of the parish primary curriculum, as well as Luann Wainwright Dill from the Education Reform Unit. And Karen, and now please, can you give us an overview of where we are at this process?
Thanks, Minister, and good evening to everyone that's tuning in. I won't be on here for very long. I'm really just going to introduce the process that our amazing teachers from right across the system are engaged in. So Crystal and Alandra and about 23 other teachers representing primary, early childhood and middle schooling are developing a parish primary school curriculum. Well, that means that we need to understand where young people are at when they enter school and what we want them to leave primary schooling with, so that it connects to middle school right now, but actually to our future senior schooling options in the system. We know that young people in Bermuda need access to an internationally recognised curriculum, students of Bermuda, but also of the world, that is locally and contextually relevant to their lives. And the team has been brought together, well, they've volunteered. Actually, right now we're sitting at Cedar Bridge Academy. Alandra and Crystal are missing the first hour of their meeting that they have every Thursday, where this team of teachers comes together to do this really important work on behalf of the island. They're not just building out content standards, though. They're not just saying that young people need to know this, because a young person's experience of schooling is just so much more than what they need to know. The curriculum needs to be restorative. It needs to be holistic. It needs to pay attention to what young people, of course, need to know, content, but what they need to be able to do, what they need to be able to understand, the skills they need to develop, and also give opportunities through really vibrant learning experiences for young people in parish primary schools to apply those skills in real world settings. So that is the not so easy task that has been given to this group of amazing educators from right across Bermuda. And as I said before, the team that's here every Thursday night is made up, of course, from teachers from Francis Patton and from Purvis Primary School, as the first two parish primary schools to open for P1 and P7 students in September 2023. But to complement that group of teachers from those two fantastic schools, we have early childhood educators, because actually they are the guardians of what young people develop very early on from home educators and in their family lives. And they remind us constantly of the fact that our curriculum needs to be strengths-based and build out from where young people are already at. So we have early childhood educators. We have people who work across every primary level. So although we might be focusing on P1 and P7, this team needs to have a view of what the entirety of the primary school curriculum will look like. We have people like Crystal from middle schools, because they're experts in adolescence and what young people are, where they are developmentally at that age, and what the parish primary school curriculum needs to feed into. We have some secondary school teachers in our mix as well. And just that collaboration and cross-pollination between people who teach in different phases across the system. And of course, this team is expertly supported by members of the Department of Education who live and breathe curriculum development, and that is their life's work. So they have both, content expertise, our department colleagues, but they also have that helicopter view of what a systems approach to this. Just a few key things to say, Minister, before I hand back to you. This curriculum will focus on the whole child. We know that in doing so, we need to think about, in building this curriculum, we need to think about what capabilities teachers need in order to be able to deliver it. The curriculum will only ever be as good as the way that it's put into practice in classrooms day after day with our young people. It has to be a curriculum that gives us the best opportunity to meet outcomes that parents, that community, that the world needs in our young people. And we know, like everything we do inside education reform, it needs to align for the vision for learning that has been developed by teams of people across this time, that really aspirational, guiding and inspiring vision that we have, that holds us, that anchors us into, the direction of travel that we're going in. So that means that we're always thinking about relevance, personalisation, flexibility, inclusivity for Bermuda. Those principles are things that we use as quality criteria the whole way. So that's just a very brief summary of the curriculum and learning experience design process that forms part of Education Reform Unit. But Minister, you and those that are watching will want to hear from the teachers that are involved in this. So I will say goodbye and hand back to you.
Thank you, Karen, for giving us that overview of where we are in this process. Because a lot of people, and from the meetings that we've been having this week, there is some uncertainty that we are definitely looking to provide the answers to some of those questions. We're doing some socializations and some meetings, but there is a lot of things going on that we just have to do a better job of getting our people a full understanding of what's going on, and so they can relate and see how not only their personal experiences but their children's experiences fit into how we will be definitely moving this along. But with Crystal and Alondra, I just wanted to give you a brief opportunity to introduce yourselves to our listening audience and let us know what excites you about the work that we're doing that you are a part of.
You're gonna let me go first? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am a math teacher at Clearwater Middle School, and I jumped on the experience to be a part of the redesign plan for Francis Patton, in particular because I knew that this was the right time for our system to transform and develop and enhance and make some changes on things that we presently do in our system. So what excites me the most about being a part of it is the collaboration. It's not just the one perspective, it's several teachers with different perspectives, different ideas, the innovation that comes about just by our discussions, and is very inclusive. As Karen had said, it includes teachers from every level of education and things that we don't really get this opportunity. We normally transfer the students to high school for us middle school teachers, and then we never really transition to speak to the primary. But in this process, because it's such a collaborative experience, we are able to have that collaboration and kind of unveil things, unveil challenges that we thought we were handling, in middle school, but we realized it's sometimes primary school, but not just addressing, looking at challenges, it's addressing the challenges. So I'm excited about what's to come. I think it's opened up a whole different dynamic when we think about the public school education system. And I think not the excitement that we as teachers share, parents, and as well as most importantly, the students will be excited about what's to come. So that's my excitement.
Thank you, Crystal. Alondra?
Yeah, good afternoon. So I have the distinct pleasure of actually teaching at Francis Patton in Primary 1. And I am also a part of the Creative Curriculum Kindergarten pilot of teachers that are right now piloting Creative Curriculum in P1. So for me, becoming a part of this, I think was exciting on so many different fronts. Number one, because I was already in this flow of looking at transformation in the early years when children enter into primary school, but then being able to be a part of a team that was looking at the whole, redesigning holistically. And one thing that I think for me was big was on the pedagogy practice. So coming together as a team, not just early years, but early years, primary, middle, and then high, and saying, oh my goodness, what are we doing to ensure that children are receiving teaching practice that are in line with 21st century thinking, 21st century understanding, especially when you consider those expectations outside of the school framework. So when they leave, we want leaders, we want innovators, we want thinkers. So being able to collaborate to say, yes, we have this amazing curriculum, even holistic curriculum, but here's how we get to really visualize how it's taught to meet their needs. And I think the second piece for me was, again, being able to create a vision that was not just insular to Francis Patton as a primary school or even early years, but looking at what the future is. A lot of times as teachers, unintentionally, we become narrow in our vision sometimes, just in terms of just seeing what that year level is of the school, but then being able to broaden our understanding through collaborations with other schools and other teachers has been really, really exciting. Just getting that feedback. And again, it just creates that vision for when I go back to my classroom with my littles, definitely has in-class applications. So, yeah.
Just listening to you talk, and for full transparency, I met with this particular team earlier today. I sense a feeling of optimism when I left today, but there's still some things that need to be discussed and fleshed out. But how optimistic do you feel about the work that we're doing and the impact it will have on our students moving forward from September 2023?
In terms of optimistic, I think anyone that joined to be a part of that team, I think that was the key component. I think we're all in a place of, at every teacher level, especially the teachers that are on this team, we want the best. We want our students to leave away with having the best education. We want public school education to be the first choice. And we realize that there are some significant changes and things that we need to do better. And being a part of this team, the amount of innovative ideas that we have come up with, the research that we have carried out, definitely lets me know that we should be optimistic about the outcome and the things that we're going to do. While in any process, you're going to have hurdles, and we're willing to stay to the ground, plot away, and do what we need to do to make sure that at the end of this journey, it's going to be something that will be lasting for not just the current students that we have, but even for the generations to come. And I think that leaves me excited about the in terms of what is to unfold. But I think all of us have made a commitment, and for most of us, it's a personal commitment that we want better for our island home. We want better for our students. And because of that, I am very optimistic about the outcomes that will come. It's going to be favorable.
Yeah, and I'm actually just going to piggyback off of exactly what Crystal was saying about generations. So I was asked a question recently, what if what you are doing today is building a legacy for children that you will never meet, children that you will never see, teachers that you will never, ever get to interact with? And that really, it makes me emotional, because I think, again, when we enter into a classroom, we're thinking about what's happening today. Certainly we do have an eye on the future, but a lot of times it's immediate. And so to consider that what I do today, even what we talk about today, has the capacity to create a legacy that will last for generations, to me is powerful. And it was someone who doesn't even have a child in Bermuda Public Schools who said that to me. And it was like, wow. So I think there's a driving force behind this optimism. I think there's a pragmatism, definitely. There's a place where there's a history, but certainly there's a place that says, what I do today, I may never get to see the child that benefits from, I may never get to interact with them, but I know the work that I'm doing is laying that foundation for them. And I think it's very humbling. And I think it's a big driving force for optimism, and really consider just the enormity of the impact that it has. So I think you definitely do need teachers who are optimistic because of what the implications for the future holds.
And I want to thank both of you for those answers, because when I think about, we consistently say everything that we're doing, everything that we're planning on starts with student focus, being student centered. And what is it that our students need in order to be successful after passing through the Bermuda education system? And both of you hit that right on the nail. It's like we're doing this for future generations of students. We may not see when you think about this, Francis Patton being at the cusp. When I spoke about it this morning, when I said this team is the tip of the spear, there is more to come. But realistically, when you really put it in context, the students that start in P1 in September 2023 at Francis Patton will not finish with the revised system until 13 years later. And for some of us, we may not be here in teaching. We may have gone on to retirement. If it's God's plan, that we may have gone on to our next steps, right? But 13 years, we are at the beginning of 13 years of a child's life, and that is an awesome responsibility to take on. And I just want Bermuda public to know and see, this is two people, a part of a much larger team that's working on this. But this is what they're dedicated to doing, is making sure that our children have that beginning of what's going on, what's going to go forth within their educational career. And 13 years from now, we will see Bermuda itself will reap the benefits of the hard work that's being done by individuals such as Crystal and Alondra. So what I want to ask you now, teachers, is what looks different and what will stay the same as we move forward with our reform at the parish primary school level?
I'll let Alondra go first this time.
No problem, no problem. I was just, giving first dibs. So I'll start with what will stay the same. So we definitely have, as Karen said, an internationally recognized curriculum, in that of both Cambridge international examinations and creative curriculum. So those are the two areas that we are focused in on, what is going to be maintained. So what are some of the things that are going to be different? Is definitely bringing a sense of alignment between the early years and the rest of the primary school curriculum. Being able to take the frameworks and really build out best practices around how we want to teach. Also considering the stages and ages our children are at, and ensuring that aligns as well. One of the things that we identified recently is that our children, in comparison to other jurisdictions, do come in not directly at 5, although their birth year is 5 years old. Some don't come in. I know last year I had a cohort of several students who I left them in December, still at 4. So how are we able to meet them, especially as they progress into year 2? What does that look like? And so there's definitely a lot of going back and looking at the curriculum to ensure that there is alignment. What are some areas that we can ensure? What does Cambridge advise? What does creative curriculum advise for these ages and stages? How can we really just ensure that what we are doing is cohesive and flows. And I think a big sticking point for me in terms of the difference is the how we organize it, how we practice it, how we teach it, how we implement it. And I think one of the biggest challenges is certainly creating a mindset shift. I'm sure, Minister Rubain, you heard that today,
Mhm.
that mindset shift needed culturally within our school to really understand what is needed to be able to make that shift, but understanding that, the objectives of the objectives, how we go about teaching that to ensure deep learning and understanding takes place is the biggest difference and change that we want to ensure that we get right and implement.
Okay. Thank you for that.
What I've noticed, the biggest change for me is actually the partnerships. Community partners are going to play a major role in terms of how we move forward. And I could recall, even just typically when you hear the term PTSA, you're thinking of the parent, teacher, and the student, but now you're going to have that inlet of that community. So it's a community skill. So we're going to utilize a lot of community partnerships, which we think will not just enhance our school, but just enhance generally the parish primary. That's our local goal to do that. Another component that will look different, we're going to be very intentional about addressing the entire child, because we always talk about academics, but one piece of the pie that we kind of leave out is that social piece, that social emotional piece. So incorporating the academic curriculum, also we're going to learn to put in this, self-regulatory strategies for the children to be able to learn to cope with different things. Because think about it, they have faced things in this world like a pandemic. We're realizing just having from conversation from a primary, well, the preschool to the primary to the middle and even the senior level, that was an impactful event that we as adults sometimes have struggled to process. So we have to kind of reflect on those types of things. So we're looking at holistically, really the whole child, and not just making it about academics. You're going to see sometimes flexible learning hours, and there's different things that we can integrate so that we're catering to not just the academic needs, but even the interests of students. So by the time they leave our parish primary, they will have a keen idea about who they are as an individual, but more importantly, what their next steps or their desires to be. So that will be some of the key changes. But some of the things that you did say will stay the same. I think it's the commitment from the teachers. I think there are wealth of teachers in our public school system who are committed. And I think that commitment will stand strong. I think many of us, even my colleagues who are not a part of the redesign team, when they hear about the things that we're proposing to do, it's now gotten onto, well, I want that to happen at my school right now.
Mhm.
So it's transitioning just the way that our commitment as educators is not just a commitment that the design team is actually transferring to other schools. So I think that part will probably remain the same.
And I thank you for some of the things that you raised. I know it seems so long ago that when we did the consultation around the parish primary school concept, I remember we used to start off by saying, you know, thinking of what we want to do for our children in the future actually it's a difficult concept because it's so different from what we all grew up with. And I heard something earlier today that kind of stood out with me, that it said most people that go into teaching had a successful education experience, and so that successful education experience shapes their thought process around what the teacher should do and shouldn't do, and what schooling within our school system should give and not give. And so, but what we're talking about, some of the things we're talking about is, it's for some people, when I have those conversations, they can't even fathom, like, really, you would do that in a primary school? Like, why not? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do some of those things? And and it's a consistent conversation that needs to be had and a vision that needs to be painted. And it's very difficult to paint a vision without having, for a lot of people to actually see it right there in front of you and see it manifest itself, and how it could be, as we move forward. And so it's a learning experience, and as we talked about earlier, it's something it's continuously learning, continuously watching what happened prior, and figuring out what we're going to do differently as we move forward. and till we get to the point where so when I said earlier, it's kind of realistically one of our students coming into Francis Patton in September 2023 will go through 13 years of something different. And it's not really until they get through the 13 years and what they come out on the other side, you're going to be able to say, I can see it. Some people, it's actually going to take that long to say, okay, I can actually see what this is different. But we're going to keep striving, and we're going to keep trying to understand, get those people. And one of the critical pieces on that, Bermuda, is we want your input. We consistently want you to come and tell us that I've seen it, I see what you're trying to do, but here's what I think. Because that's the only way we're going to build a system that all of us can have a legitimate expectation to say, I understand what's going on because I was there, I gave my input, I can actually see my idea up there on the screen. Next question I want to ask. Yes, I'm sorry.
If I can just, sorry, I apologize. I just want you kind of just
you
something.
can speak. You can. We're just having a conversation. We can talk about whatever we want.
I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying in terms of that, seeing students and seeing the changes. And sometimes there is feedback about, oh my goodness, really? You're going to do that? And I'll tell you, coming into the space, and it's very timely that I would be on the transformation team while also being a part of piloting this new curriculum, because there's been a lot of that, really? You're going to do that? But the evidence, honestly, the evidence is in the students. So today, for example, we're studying the grocery store. Really? The grocery store? But the way that I engaged them was through, I wonder, how? What do you think? And we went from just this simple topic, because we're just starting to explore it, and it transitioned into, we are now building structures. I brought a level to school. I left the level in their construction area, and they took it and they began to build shelves. They began to build the outside of the grocery store. They built ramps. They started testing out how fast cars can go, like just through this space of, we're going to do it this way. So much language, inquiry, investigation came out. And it's exciting because that was not something that I said, here you go, I wrote it down and you go replicate it. Their ability to imagine and innovate came as a result of it. So there are some areas where even now I hear the really, but I'm seeing the, yeah, this is why I'm doing this, and also why it's important to stay optimistic, because I see that change even now within this space of CCK.
And we also noticed it in our prototyping for I think it was your level, we prototyped with the P1s today, the STEAM initiative, because we're also looking to implement that. And it was very funny, we thought, because whenever we do prototyping, we always make sure we either film or take pictures. So the Elliott teachers who are not transitioning yet was a part of that prototyping, and how they were able to construct. I think the activity was that they had to build a house to sustain hurricane winds or something to that effect. So the teachers had done a structure very similar to what I would do, where I would, it was all they had was popsicle sticks and Play-Doh. And the children and the teachers as well had the same task. But it was amazing to us how the students had made sure to apply that the Play-Doh across the board, so it was more secure versus us adults who were rolling it in bowls and sticking the sticks in. So it made us think that we were thinking, I wonder how innovative the students were, and we're thinking, well, they're going to think like our adults, but it ended up where their structures were far more secure than us. And that's almost what the transition of what this parish primary school would do. It's just unveiling those talents that, or, there's things that innovate, that creativity, we're blending it all together. So the curriculum is probably going to look a lot different when they come home, and now the students, when they tell you about their experiences, it's going to be like, oh, well, how does that make a connection? But that all connects to the arts, the science, the math, the technology piece. So I think it's going to be definitely, as you address it, it's a transition. The transition has to begin in the mind. And the more I think parents hear about what their children are doing, it sounds like creativity but it's all a connection to learning. So
Yes. Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Alondra, for expanding on that. And I see someone has popped on. Who's they were just saying they just joined on there, and they were apologizing for coming on late. Next question I wanted to ask, and I'm sure we can talk quite a bit about this, but what challenges do you face with the work that you're doing? And this one we can start with Crystal and then go to Alondra. That means Alondra, you'll get the next. You start with the next question.
The biggest challenge for me is the commitment of time personally, as I am still a current middle school math teacher at my school where I have to service the needs of my current students. It's a big juggle. It's the time that I'm away outside of my class. I'm just finding that balance. That's just a personal commitment. I think one thing we've learned, and I think is a challenge for most teachers, is in this space, you live in a gray area. For most of us teachers, it's that black and white piece. I want to say Karen often tells us as teachers, we are natural problem solvers. So we realize we are here to solve problems, but we want to have that immediate impact. But making sure that we're successful at this process means that it's a lengthier time frame that we're thinking about. So for a lot of it, for us, it's really a mindset shift, and shifting that mindset, because that's just who we are. If you're an educator, naturally you're a problem solver. We want to fix it. We live in that now space, and because this has been a process that's a lengthy one, it requires us to kind of remain encouraged. But what I find, because we're working as a team, when one person is discouraged, is always that one person that wants to bring that silver lining. And then we always have to reflect back, we're doing it for the children. So that kind of keeps that momentum. But that has been a personal challenge, finding that balance of time. We do work evenings, so it cuts into your personal time. And those of us that have little ones at home, that might mean the spelling tests are done by grandma versus mommy. So those types of commitment. But like we said, it's an investment. And because we look at it as a generational investment, this is the future of our island, I think that challenge is easily overcome.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually going to quote what you said, Minister, earlier today to us. You made the quote of, and please correct me if I get it wrong, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it done. Am I saying that right?
I know. I said
Okay.
I prefer done over perfection, because I prefer done over perfect, because perfect never gets done.
Okay, and I'll go to that in terms of challenge, because exactly what Crystal said, we are ones that say, you give us this curriculum, you give us the strategies, we want to see the fruit, the evidence right away. And then a teacher like me who goes for the gusto and makes it and packages it and wants to see it perfect, gets into a space like transformation and also CCK pilot. And it's like, it's not perfect. It's not the perfection. And I have teachers wondering, what in the world am I doing? And then I have, trying to see evidence, but the evidence is not there and I think that, seeing it done and also realizing that going through the process of seeing it done is going to be a part of that legacy that generations get to experience is, like, don't get me crying. It is hard, because there's a part of this that says, I really have a vested interest in seeing not just the kids that are coming, but the kids that are here now receive everything. And what I really had to learn was, and one of the things that we learned in the onboarding process was overcoming the fear of failure and overcoming being okay in the gray. And listen, failure and teacher are not, they don't go in one sentence,
No.
right? They don't. So being able to say, there are areas where I made mistakes, there are areas where I didn't see that, or I got it wrong, or the area where I'm learning. So obviously I am going to make that mistake because I honestly just didn't know. That's hard. That is hard. How how do you communicate that to faculty? How do you communicate that to teachers, other teachers across the system? How do you communicate that to the community, that this is a practice? We are a part of transformation, but there are going to be things that we just don't get 100%. But we still are excited, passionate, wanting the best. And I think grounding myself in the place of, I'm going to still do it because we got to get this thing done. We know the data's there. We see and we have evidence that says the cycle of just trying to get it done is not working. So where do we come to a place of facing that difficulty and say, I'm going to, I'm getting all emotional. I'm going to actually blaze this trail. And I think, honestly, it takes tough skin to persevere. I'm grateful for my family support. I'm grateful for community partners who genuinely believe in what we're doing so that we can get it done. And I'm grateful that there is a team that says, you know what? I'm not looking for perfection. You are who you are, and I value this space, but we're going to press through no matter what. We're going to press through, and what you're doing is still good. It's still good. Yeah. So, oh, it got me there. That was a tough one. That's a tough one, right? Because
I'm proud of you. But you know what's encouraging? This is probably what I appreciate, Minister, that you've had your presence is there. So even from having the ministry there, the department there, you've heard our voices. So when we do have challenges, it's like they're addressed immediately. And, even just having you, we were supposed to be with you for 45 minutes today, and it ended up being a 2-hour open forum that we were able to ask those questions and address those challenges. And that's appreciated. That's something that for me in the system, I wasn't accustomed to, but you have definitely been a hands-on minister. And you've given us that voice that we need. So even when we come and, we have those platforms, it's everyone hears the feedback is great. We could tell that you're listening to us. Even our commissioner was present. So there's a stream of presence on every platform that has an impact to the education system, which definitely helps us feel more supported in our challenges, because, with any new process, that's just inevitable to happen. But the fact that when we talk up and we ask for things to be addressed, you're right there giving us answers and guiding us, helping us along, guiding us through the way. So I think I've caught you a couple of evenings popping into our sessions. So that definitely is encouraging.
But it's you guys mentioned this earlier, right? We're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for future generations. And we all owe Bermuda the legacy. As adults that have come through education in Bermuda, we owe to give something back. Whether you're as an educator, whether you're as a parent, whether you're as a community partner, even as a student, we owe it to each other to give something back. And for far too long, my take on this is, for far too long, people have tried to use education as a football to just kick around whenever something goes wrong. And sometimes you'll often hear me, my team would often hear me, and they will have to pick me up when I say things like, why doesn't anyone care about what we're doing? Why doesn't anyone care about education unless it impacts them directly in some way at that time? And then they get that problem solved, and then you call them and say, hey, come back. They're like, you solved what I had an issue with, check it later. So part of the reform is the change of mindsets on how we look at education, not just from an educator's point of view, but from a parent's point of view, from Bermuda as a whole. When we talk about education and we talk about some of the best systems in the world, one of the things that follow them is the entire country is rallied behind the need to educate their children. And that's where we will be. I'm convinced of it, that everyone will know that, they have skin in this game. And it's not just left to the teachers at the school. It's not just left to the principal at the school. It's not just left to the Department of Education. It's not just left to the minister. It's all of us have a stake in what happens with education. And all of us will need to give in order for the whole to be better at it. And our students deserve nothing less And I will continue to come. If you guys have ever heard me say, if I have to have conversation with every person in Bermuda on an individual basis, I will do that, because I truly believe in what we're doing. I truly believe in the persons that are doing the hard work, because I'm not there doing this work that you're doing, which is real work, and it's real hard work. And we've heard you talk about it, the sacrifices that you may give. So I should I should be stopping by, because if you're going to do it and I'm saying that we need to do it, why can't I be there too? And that's the reason that drives me to want to be there and actually experience what you are. And the other part is everything. And another thing you always hear me say is that everything starts with a conversation. If and for far too long, especially in the society we are, it's almost, some people believe some of the issues that they're going through, everybody else automatically just figures it out. I don't know what's happening unless I ask the question, or I come and say, please tell me, or ask me, and we can move forward from there. I might not be able to give the answers right away. I might not even give the answers that you like, but I will find the answers for you, and we will try and find a way forward together, because we all are in this together. And so thank you for, this conversation we're having is just another example of how do we get everyone else on board on what it is that we are actually trying to do. Um, the next question I want to ask both of you, and I think it's Alondra's turn to go first this time, and that is, what difference do you think developing a parish primary school curriculum will make you as a teacher and to the students you teach, given that, oh, I'm sorry, the question I have is actually for you, Crystal, and not for that. And this one is, what difference do you think that developing a parish primary school curriculum will make you as a teacher and to the students you teach, given that you are currently in a middle school? And Alondra, you are currently teaching P1. So Crystal, you're in middle school, but you're doing work at the primary school level. And Alondra, you currently are in P1, but we're doing work for P1 and P7. So what differences do you think in developing parish primary school curriculum will make to you as a teacher and to the students that you currently teach?
That I currently teach?
Yes.
Um,
But Alondra was supposed to go first, but
she was supposed to go first. Alondra, because I would, let's not get out of sync here. Fairness, I'm a math teacher. So since it's your turn, let's keep it even.
No problem. I will take it. It's interesting because one of the unique perspectives that I've been given, I'm so grateful for, is having taught all the year levels with the exception of P4. So I do come with that, seeing things. And I think the beauty of that is when I did transition out of the upper school, I still maintain a vision for what my kids are gearing towards. What I think is so important in terms of the difference is being able to get it. I want to say get it right, for lack of a better term, but actually see that the work that I'm doing now has these implications for today, because now I'm saying, okay, yes, the focus is on P1, P7, but what am I doing to ensure today that my P1s, the conversation is also leading into their success in P2? So having conversations now with colleagues, having conversation with my principal, certainly this space really helps me to realize, oh my gosh, I have to talk about this, and really even how I come up with different plans, or as we collaborate, I have them in the back of my head. And so the conversations are happening even now in regards to things that are happening for transformation, but also for my kids that are in the classroom, because it's like, okay, well, I'm here in this space, but I'm also planning for the future and saying, well, what do my kids need now? Right now, to be successful as they transition? Well, they're going to need clear pedagogy practice, a curriculum that really meets their needs for critical thinking, innovation, because that's what's coming out of the transformation work. So I think having a vision, it really does guide that perspective as we are looking towards, because, for us teachers, it's February. It might as well be June, right? You know how it is. It might as well be June. We're thinking forward to say, time is winding down, and this is going to be for my kids. What am I doing today that's leading into it? So I think that's
Okay.
really big for us in this space. Good,
I would wholeheartedly agree with that, Alandra. I think the major difference that I would see immediately is that um, relationships big, relationships big for students as well as parents. And I think having this parish primary school, remember there's, you go from P1 to 6 and then they go to a whole different school where it's almost like it's a reset button, right? You've got to be reintroduced to the teachers. So a lot of the things that I would need to know to better improve just even my classroom instructions in terms of learning deficits, or if a child needs enrichment in certain areas, you kind of alleviate that process with the use of a parish primary. I think one of the major concerns we often hear about from parents is, oh, I don't want my children to leave them as like that nested at primary school because everyone knows them. You had them for 6 years. It's a little different. So I think the difference that my students will have is that they will be going into classes, unless you're looping with your kids, is almost like your day one starts all over in M1 and then M2. But with having the parish primary, that learning profile will be a lasting one for them, and we'll be able to pinpoint those areas of concern and probably address them a lot quicker now that we have this more inclusive process. So I think that will be one of the major differences that we will see, because the teachers that will be in those P7 and 8 teachers will actually still be at the same school. The relationships with the parents will be probably more enhanced, because it would be like, yeah, we know your child, we've known them since P1. So it'd be more of a collaboration, better collaboration at that level as well. So that's something that I think would be something to look forward to, but it'll be a major difference in terms of what my current students experience. I also think right now they do the transition of going from one subject area to the next. In this process, when we speak together with terms of the curriculum, we always talk about that cross curriculum piece that sometimes for scheduling reasons, we can't accommodate that. But with this time, we're being intentional about making sure what's the connection in science and math, technology. So when they come, they're going to have everything interconnected, which will also further enhance their learning experiences. That's something that currently we don't often give to our students, but because it's a little bit hard with our schedules, to work from the uncore department to the core department. But in this case, that's how we're starting. We're starting looking at the curriculum and trying to see like, oh, how does music play with math? And, oh, it's some fractions that they have to learn. So the evenings that we spend on Thursdays is several teachers coming from different elements and different subject content areas. So we're now in that process of making sure that cross curriculum will happen, and it'll be done with some vitality. So yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So just and this one is definitely for Crystal and not you, Miss Swan. As a middle school teacher, the purpose of the parish primary school concept and the signature school is to fade out middle schools eventually. What is how does that make you feel? Because you are a middle school teacher, and so as middle schools, as we introduce the parish primary schools, students will go from P6 into P7, which obviously means they will not be going to middle school, which will eventually lead to the demise of the middle schools, as we talked about phase out. How does that? How are you? How do you wrap your head around that? And perhaps how, I'm sure your fellow teachers talk about that as well. What is the thought process about that, moving away from what we have now to the back to the two-tier system?
For me, because I didn't come up through middle school, so I was in that old system, as my students would say. You never went to middle school, but I think I knew that we had a working system. Like many of us came up through that system, and we didn't have the experience of attending middle school. What I am encouraged by is that even at the Francis Patton Parish, is that we're doing pods. So what that means is they're still going to be fostered differently. They're going to have a different experience than what they currently have, because that's also important, yes. But they will have, it's going to be different in the sense that I really think we're going to address those needs I think sometimes we can easily miss those gaps because we're kind of starting fresh when they come to us in middle school level.
Right.
I wouldn't
Okay.
say my colleagues were encouraged by this. We know that there's concern at public school system, and we need to do things differently. So I think we're open to experience something new. I think for me, I'm probably a little bit more encouraged by it because I'm actually in it and I understand the process better. But for the most part, I think we're still captivating on the academic bit. They're still going to have to learn the content that they will deliver in M1 and M2. But I'm a specialized teacher in mathematics, but if I transition down to primary level, maybe the teaching will be a lot different. In terms of I may just not only engage P6 or 7 or 8 class, I might be able to flow to the lower levels. So for me, picking up some of because being trained in a specialized teacher, you kind of see little things a little different. I know often when they come to middle school, one of the things that they have to retransition is that subtraction sign. So when we're dealing with integers, they tend to look at, 7 minus 5. And I'm like, well, that's a negative number. So it's different little things like that where maybe we won't wait to middle school to teach them those concepts, but rather give them that, thought process a little bit earlier because we understand that that's something that they need to grow into. So I think from the lens of a current middle school teacher, I think we're all encouraged either way, because we know that right now we have a current system and the data tells us that our students need to be a little better. Well, not a little, they need to improve. And that improvement, I think, will definitely come from the parish primary because we're looking at just doing different best practices and we're being innovative. We can't kind of stick with the same traditions that, we've done years ago. We're looking to revamp and revitalize things so that we can address these learners because a lot of them don't learn the same way that we do. So because of that, we have to kind of gear our practices to reflect more of the learners that we have in front of us. Even how the workspace is not as isolated. Teamwork is collaboration's big on every level. So, coming into classes, we have to be a little bit more collaborative. But knowing your students, you may know, oh, don't put little Bobby with such and Sue because they don't work well together. But they still have to learn to work together. But you'll have a history, Sometimes we miss that history piece until we get into the class and you're like, oh, goodness, that was a disaster lesson because they don't work well together. But in this forum, I think we'll learn a little bit more. We're going to have e-learning profiles. So every child will go forward with a profile that will last from the entire time that they're in public school. That's something that we don't have, meaning I would have to go look in a file, and usually that file is not, privy to me, but that's something that I'm encouraged by because the children will have a history. The history that they have at the parish primary level will go to senior school. So we will know there's learning gaps. But that's, I think, for us as an educator, we're always learners. We're trained to be continuous learners. And what we've learned over the years is that learning looks different from when we were in school until now. So even just how we sit, the traditional seating will not happen. So I think we're all encouraged because we're looking forward to a change and we want to be that catalyst of change. But either way, when we sign up to be public school educators, we're here to serve the children of today and ensure that they are set up for the future. So if that means that we're shifting gears, I think we're welcome to that idea because we know that a shift has to change because teaching and learning has changed over the years.
Well, thank you for that, Crystal. Yeah, and then you'll see one of our logos is the world is changing, so the way we deliver education has to change as well. But this brings us up to our time frame that we had scheduled for this 4:45. You guys probably stayed a little bit longer than you thought you would. We do have a question that has come, and I guess I will. Yeah, I guess it says here, and this is probably something that you can answer, Chris. It's the one question that did come. It says, my daughter will be moving into middle school in September. Are the middle school teachers staying in that one subject level, or will they be teaching all topics as well?
We actually researched that. So that was a topic that came up. Research has told us that it's better to move forward in the teacher going from one subject to the next. But in terms of staffing and all those things that have to play into that part, we are still working on that. But certainly that is an option that we have considered. We're really just looking for the best practice. So several schools in the U.S. who have transitioned back to not having middle school have found that it's more favorable for students to go from one subject content to the other. Also, what we've had to consider majorly is that we want children to have a very similar experience, meaning Encore is something that traditionally they would not be exposed to at the primary level, but that's something that will not only help with give opening them up to different experiences, but that would also allow them to kind of gear them towards which signature they would like to go to after primary. So we're currently looking. That's what we meet each night about in terms of what should the curriculum look like. And because sometimes we might do project-based learning, so inquiry learning has definitely been a big part of it. So it may look like you incorporate several content areas all in one go, but it will teach them what they need. So we're kind of aligning what we would like to have the experience. We're aligning it with what they need to learn as their curriculum objectives. So that has been considered. And I think we're still in the process of finalizing that, but we are definitely looking at the end of the day to ensure that the best practices are administered. So yeah, at this point in time, I don't want to say yes or no, because we're really at that. That's what this curriculum meeting or the forum is for us to discuss what it should look like. I want to say they presented about 4 different options to us, and we're really going to try to figure out what will work best for our students at this community level. But we don't want to take away from this, favorable learning experience like Family Start is. Definitely having that foreign language piece, but maybe the foreign language piece doesn't have to be just for the P7 and 8s, because we can trickle it on down to a P1. So we're looking at those types of things. So our focus hasn't yet narrowed down to what will it be, but certainly we're considering those options. And that was a big consideration. And being a part of this team, as a middle school teacher, I can put my input in terms of what I think will be work best. And for me personally, I think having the students kind of grow in that space of going from one class to the next, it doesn't have to be all content areas, but I think for their core subjects, I think that would be a great I think that will be a great part of their learning journey, because really we're preparing them not to stay in primary school, we're preparing them for the next phase. And when they get to senior schools, that's part of that middle school experience, was to replicate what they will have to go to next. So in some content areas, I think it will be more favorable to move in that space. So yeah.
And thank you, Ms. Richardson. And I also want to let those persons know out there that there is no intention to change what happens in middle school at present. We have 2 parish primary schools, and we'll still have middle schools in play for a little while longer. And so what happens in middle school now is not going to change. What the changes you will see will be at the primary level. And so with that, I just want to thank you, Ms. Swan, thank you, Ms. Richardson, or do you prefer Alondra and Crystal, for coming on and giving us an insight of what's happening at Francis Patton Primary and their system transformation teams. For the general public, just thank you for tuning in. It's been very informative for myself. And we always encourage you to give us feedback. You can send us emails at schoolredesign@moed.bm, or you can log on at the website www.learningfirstbda.com and read some of this information we're talking about now. Sign up for the newsletters, or you can follow us on the various social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at moed.bda and Learning First BDA accounts. We're consistently posting. We're always posting things online. And so with that, I just want to say once again, thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Alondra. And I wish you all the best as we head into the weekend. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And we'll see you next time in 2 weeks with another episode of Education Connection. Thank you.